I was asked on my channel the other day about a rear screen wiper motor. Chap called Stephen asked me if I knew anything about them. Well, I do a little bit. What I want to say is they are notorious for seizing up in the shafts here. So what I've rigged up simply is a couple of test leads. You can see now I've got my battery here, and I'm going to just quickly rig this up. No, but first of all, excuse me, I made the end of the test leads out of some clips like this. Now these are too big. Actually, the ones I made it out of are these little ones here, but that's just to show you. Little tiny ones which will push over the connectors in here. See what I mean? Just like that, if you can see that. And I put some shrink wrap, heat shrink, over the top so the two don't touch together. So the black one, as usual, is ground. So I'm going to put that onto the ground. I'm not going to put a switch in, I'm just going to touch it straight onto the top. And I want you to try and see what happens to the motor. Watch very carefully. You can hear the motor trying to work. I'm going to swap the leads over. Now watch here. See? Did you see what happened? Let's turn it backwards again. The nice thing about DC motors, you can run them backwards or forward. And the leads are getting warm, so there's a short. And there's the phone going. Sorry about that, but this is what you get when you do live videos. Well, I record them without editing. So what we've got is the shaft is seized up. It's very, very common. Now, the thing is, this is off, I think this is off a Disco 2 or I'm not really sure. I just picked it off the shelf. But the principle is exactly the same. So we're going to take these two connectors off here and put them to one side so they're nice and safe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip this down and we're going to have a look at it, but I'm not going to touch the motor because I know the motor works because it turned. The only reason it wasn't working is because it's seized in the shaft. Now I've got to tell you, this might not work. Alright, this might not work because they are a bugger to get out. They really are. Just behind here, on some Land Rovers, they have a little C-clip. And this one, if I've got my little pointing screwdriver, just here is like a, how do we say, like a conical washer. It pushes on but it can't come off, if you see what I mean. It's a curve like this, so when you push it on it grips tight but it can't come off. Behind that will be an O-ring to stop the water getting down, as if that worked. But the problem is, some of these are aluminium and some are plastic, and the plastic ones do break. I don't know. So I'm going to strip it down, or start to strip it down, and we'll keep coming back to this. So I managed to get off this little clip. It's very hard to see actually, it goes onto there. I did damage the plastic a little bit, but I wasn't too bothered. I haven't got a nut for this. I should have, if you're going to do this, put the nut on and prise against the nut. I prise against the plastic and I damaged the thread just a little bit. Well, I'm not too worried about that because I don't think this is going to work, and I'll tell you why. In here, you can see clearly, you've got a worm that drives a wheel, that drives a crank, that drives a gear, that drives a shaft. So even though that motor is spinning around rapidly, all the time you're reducing the speed, but you're also increasing the torque through gearing. So that is very powerful now. If you put it directly to this, the window would be spinning around like, the wiper would be spinning like crazy, but we would have no power. And you need power because it's got to brush away snow and dirt and things like that. So what I'm getting at now is I have now got to somehow get that shaft to go through this plastic bushing or this plastic sleeve to come out, because it comes out from this direction and there's no clip on here. So that means that this comes out this way. It has to do. You can't slide this out and over. It all has to come together. So I'm going to have a go at that. I'm going to soak that in penetrating oil, and I'm just going to tap it very lightly, and I'm going to tap it backwards and forwards. There is no need to take this clip off here, because that holds the wheel on. All we're interested in is that shaft. Let me see what I can do. So I've put the nut back on. We're using a 13mm key, and the threads are a little bit nasty, but they're alright, they'll live again. Alright, so on the vise, I've opened up the vise so it will sit on this edge and this edge here, and I'm going to simply tap it down. Just move this back a little bit because it's in the way. So I'm going to tap that down and just tap it very gently. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get away with this. We'll see. I don't know, because this is what happens with real-time stuff. So I'm going to give it another go with Deep Creep. Again, this wasn't named after me, but it seems to be one of the best ones. Forget WD-40, it is a waste of a can. So we tap it very lightly, and also at the same time I'm putting my finger underneath here to support the drive. We put the... oh, it's moved. Hey, I was just going to say, we put the nut on to protect the threads. In an ideal world, we could have had a domed nut on there. So that's beside the point, but look what's happened. Hey, it's working. It's working. Whoa! All it was stuck in that very end. Wow, that's interesting. Let's go back to the beginning. Not back to the beginning. We'll go back to the bench and test it again. Before putting it all back together, I thought we'd find out why it's seized up. And also something else that's interesting, because again, these motors are kind of universal. These shafts, these sleeves here are replaceable. You can move them about a little bit. But you see, one of the things what happens with them, they've got two little clips on here, and they break off when you knock the damn shaft through. So I don't know if it's actually going to go back together. It might do. You see, they're supposed to lock over there, but they always break off. Funny enough, I can't even see where they are. Oh, there's a bit, you see. Yeah, we've got nothing to lose. But you can see the rust on the shaft, and the only thing that stopped it is the bushing here. So I'm going to put that through the wire wheel and clean this up and see if it's going to work. I doubt it now because of those little clips done, but I've got an idea. I might just warm that up with a soldering iron. See here, see those little clips that went? I'm thinking about getting the plastic welder or a soldering iron, melt them over. You see what I mean? Just melt them over so it locks that in place. Because there's a locking ring tab here. You can see that. There's a little locking tab there, which keeps that from turning. So, I mean, if you get a Discovery wiper motor, there's nothing to stop you putting this on a Defender. The stroke's the same. But like I say, it's hit and miss. You can see... Oh, wait a minute, I've just realised something here. The bushing is here in the top, so we've knocked this way, so the bushing in the top, just like this one here, this one's come out because it can't get past the rust. When we've knocked it down, it's stuck in the rust, so we've got to, oh there you go. It's full of surprises when you do things real time. So that bush is going to be nice. The only reason why it came out because it couldn't get past the rust. So I'm going to clean all this lot up with a wire wheel, and let's see if we can put it back together. So I've just got this off the wire wheel, you can hear it running there, and look at that, it came off beautifully. No problems at all. So what we're going to do, we're going to push this bush inside this tube we're going to find a little punch to try and press it down. Oh, that will do. That's a bit too big. Let's try this one. So, I'm just going to... That's still a bit too big. Let's try this one. I have no idea what the sizes are. Oh, that's better. See if we can tap that bushing in. It's not very tight, it's just a bit awkward, that's all. In fact, I think I'll do it in the vise. Just hold on. So I did mention I was going to melt these over to make it lock in. But actually, by putting the bush in, it's opened it out and it's nice and tight now. That's not going to come out. So now we can put this back together. What we need is some grease. That's right. Just hold on. So all we're going to use is just regular bearing grease. Whenever you're playing around with grease, always keep the top on. It is so easy to contaminate grease by getting grinder sparks and things like that and dirt. So keep it clean. And this is, like I said, just regular bearing grease. So what we're going to do is we're going to force it into that hole. Like that. And then we're going to put a little bit more on. Again, taking the top off. All around that shaft. This gear too here. Let's give it a treat. Let's give it, think it's its birthday. Look at that. Right, so that's going to be good. So I'm going to push this through here. Put my finger on the end so that the grease will squidge inside so it doesn't push out. Alright? So there we go. And let's see if we can get that all there. See, all clipped in together. A bit more grease on the mechanism. Don't be afraid of putting grease in. Grease is cheap. Keep out the rust. We'll pack it in there. And then we'll put the cover on. Wipe your fingers. The cover, I didn't mention how it came off. It just unclips. You just get a little screwdriver. I'll show you. Because these are things that, for speed of assembly, but it also helps when speed of disassembly. So all you need to do to get it off is just lift that clip up and force it over the top like that. Alright, so that's kind of easy. So we've got that on. Now, here we have a problem with this washer. So I'm going to do something really crude and hit it. That was crude. But again, we've got nothing to lose. And it's going to go tight onto that shaft. So let me see a little screwdriver, a little spanner. Too small. Try this one. Tap it on the side. Put that clip on. Put the nut on. Now, put the grease cap back on. Get that out of the way. Get this out of the way. Nice and tidy, which is unusual for me. Get everything out of the way. And let's put our leads back on. Just check, see if that's going to go on. I actually did have a wiring harness for this, but I give it to my friend of mine who was desperate for a TD5 one. So I'm going to clip this on. Again, we don't know if it's going to work. You're seeing it at the same time as me. Well, look at that. Fixed. I like things like that, as simple. Didn't cost anything, did it? But don't go brutally hitting the end of this shaft because you're going to break something. You have to support it. You have to take it apart. I'm quite happy with that now. I will look for a proper washer, but I think it's going to be fine. I mean, I'd put that on my car. I wouldn't bother about it. So there we go. That's how to do a wiper motor. They are all the same, but a few variants. Some of the covers have got screws on, The mechanism is exactly the same. This one's got a bracket on because this, I can tell this one came off a Disco 2 or a Disco 1. Probably a Disco 2 because it's got the 2 clips on here. So there you are. It's a simple fix. So if you like that, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and most importantly, pass this to your friends in clubs and things like this, because they like things like that. People would go out and buy a new one, you know, $150 odd or whatever they are now for a new one. All it was a bit of rust. Easy, innit? Talk to you later.